Thanks, Matt, very much. That's definitely the most dramatic music that I've ever walked onto a stage anywhere to. Cześć. Jak się masz? The Polish stops there. Luckily for you. Also, luckily for you, I'm not here to play the piano. Although I really want to. Shall I? Should we give it a try? Shh! There's a proper grown-up out there who's going to come and play for you. Goes like this, doesn't it? Ready? It's never going to work. Anyway, we're not here for the Polish, and we're not here for the piano. I am here to talk to you about pirates, my friends. And I'm here to talk to you about the similarity between you and pirates. Surprising though it may be. As Andrew intimated, the average age is just one of the similarities. The other is something that Andrew and I have discussed at some length about you. Because 300 years ago, something similar happened. A group of individuals stood up against the might of the world, against the corporates, against the institutions, against the powers that be. And that moment when we all feel, as we've heard so many times today, that we're on the brink of opportunity and on the precipice of real change. The challenge is the factors that face us. And are we as individuals really powerful enough to bring about that change? And the answer is yes, we are, and yes, you are. Difficult though it may be, exhausting though it might look, you absolutely are. And in the secrets and the untold history of pirates, I found some clues which I hope will be beneficial to you, answering the questions that were put to you earlier. What does this great city do next? And what's the story that you're going to be the authors of? For myself, this has been my exact experience. So I've decided today, from the brief that Andrew gave me, not to tell you the spiel that I can do about this book. It's been nearly a year that it's been out, and it's surprised me with its success. But to tell you the truth, because I've been in exactly the same situation, finding myself once again an individual up against almighty odds, not believing that it's anywhere possible that I can bring about the change that I want to see. No way. Just as you've got here in Boomtown, and I've discovered in the secrets of pirates an amazing opportunity and a chance to really bring about real change. My story starts here. Actually, it starts and stops here. Actually, it doesn't go anywhere. Oh dear. Guys, the thing's not working. There we go. Thanks, dudes. Here is my daughter, Scarlett. She's 6 years old and the love of my life, and the book is dedicated to her. She bought a copy. She was very proud to see her name in the front of the book. And she started to flick through it. And she said, "Daddy, how on earth did you write a book about pirates with no pictures in it?" Which is an astute observation from a 6-year-old girl. And I began to talk to her about this notion of rule breaking, that I kind of think that it's necessary, that we're not going to get the change that we need by following the rules that we've inherited. She took this on board, and she went to school that week, and I got a call from a principal at the end of that week saying, "What's happened to Scarlett? She's usually such a nice girl, and she's pushing her friends over and pulling jackets off the wall." And it got me into an awful lot of trouble with my ex-wife particularly, who likes to talk about be less pirate. So I tried a different method. And I said, Scarlett, by and large, the business model of the 20th century, for the latter part of it certainly, seems to be one that was fundamentally based on a model of exploitation. And throughout the latter part of the 20th century, by and large, we had two models. One that exploited the natural human, and now we find ourselves in a crisis of identity and anxiety, and another one that exploited the natural resources of the world, and now we find ourselves in a crisis of environmental extinction. And these two business models simply aren't relevant as we head towards the midpoint of the 21st century. And we're not going to reinvent the business model of everything from the outside of it, and nor are our leaders going to invent the business model that we need, and it's only going to come from us if we're bothered and willing and brave enough to mutiny in the middle of all of this. Which is no way to explain anything to a 6-year-old. So then I took her to see this. In the centre of London, last year, this statue was unveiled. This statue of a brave woman called Millicent Fawcett, who began the suffragettes movement and ultimately knew when it was the right thing to do the wrong thing. She risked her life, her reputation, and all that she held near to stand up for rights that she didn't have yet, rights that my daughter has now inherited, and rights that many millions of other women have inherited too. And as I explained this story, Scarlett began to get to grips with this, that sometimes it really is the right thing to do the wrong thing. And it's a very hard decision to make, a very hard judgment to call, a very scary thing to do, to break the rules and realize sometimes it's upon you to break them. But sometimes it's fundamentally the right thing to do. And as we went round Parliament Square in the centre of London, she started asking me about other statues. And I began to realize that very few of our heroes got statues made for doing what they were told. And in fact, history tells us that time and again, we value, admire, and respect the rule breakers. So I took this thought with me, because this idea that the world we're inheriting, the businesses that we're designing, can't just be fit for purpose for the next year. It can't just be our quarterly targets. The brief isn't really even just the next 5 years. The challenges we face, the rules are manifold. The challenges that face our nascent democracies, the challenges that face the opportunity that you've got, the challenges that face our environment. These are the big rules of our time, the big conventions, the big status quos that you've inherited, and the businesses that we're part of, the brands that we love, the careers that we're going to have, in some way must ladder up in this direction. And many is the time that I'm asserting this challenge to you, and people will push back at me and say, well, that's not my problem. Surely there's a really smart technology solution. Surely there's some guys in Silicon Valley who've come up with the answer for all of this. And you know as well as I do, my friends, that there's an awful lot of horseshit trampling out behind some of the promises of so many of those unicorns. And then others will say, well, maybe it's not the technology. Surely there's some grown-ups, some real adults. Surely we've got some leaders who are supposed to sort out all of these problems. And if you're looking at the world as I am from the UK at the moment, it couldn't be clearer. It could not be clearer. I'm very fortunate in my career. I get to travel the world, meet leaders of all kinds of organizations, business and institutions, and I perceive that there is a crisis of imagination at a senior level of leadership in most of our organizations. An unwillingness to tell the truth that nobody really knows what's coming and nobody really knows what to do about it. And some good ideas are required. Yet I'm also incredibly lucky to work with young, smart entrepreneurs, innovators, people within large businesses, average age 28, it's where I drew so much of my inspiration from, where I find so much energy, so much creativity, and so much knowledge. And I think it's time for a transference of power between that generation and yours. And I don't think it's going to be given. I think it's going to be taken. And I know that's difficult, because the other option is that we just sit around and complain. Now, I have some perceptions and some politics of my own. And if you want to complain about similar things, I've got really good Donald Trump memes. We can do that all day. But we know that's not getting us anywhere either. Complaining about this, bitching about the man, the lot, isn't getting us anywhere, my friends. So I've settled on another word. I've settled on a difficult and dangerous word. I've settled on rebellion. Rebellion is a strong word, and it's not normally the word that we might take to work with us. But that's the word that I think we need to take to work with us. And I know, depending on history, rebellion can mean some kind of violence, conflict, breakdown of communities. But what else is going to bring about the change that we need? We need. What else is going to give you the opportunity to accelerate towards that which is in front of you and the potential of Boomtown and all that comes for Kraków? Is it going to be by following the rules? Is it going to be by doing as we've been told? Is it going to be by doing what's been done before? I don't think so. So if it's going to really be a rebellion, I'm going to call a rebellion, then I'm going to call a sexy, cool Star Wars rebellion because I want to have a fun one. But I think it's rebellion nonetheless. So whom do we look to in this hour? If we look to history, if we don't believe that we've got the leaders we necessarily deserve or where the imagination is, if we look to history, we can see time and again in this country and many others, there are moments when individuals stand up, rightly and wrongly, and regardless of the politics of it, when individuals do stand up and change begins with all of us. So I think I found them. I think I found the figureheads, the role models, the point of inspiration that we might need. And I found them in the golden age of pirates. You're not sure about that one, are you? You were nearly with me. It's like, yeah, we can do this. What's he fucking talking about? Jack Sparrow next to the civil rights movement? Does he not understand the history? Well, my friends, the truth is I discovered a history of pirates that very few people know. If you don't mind, I'd like to share it with you. But I do know where this begins. I know where most of you will have a bit of cynicism, like pirates really, not sure. Because most of us have grown up with this as our image of pirates. You know, and we couldn't be more far away from the sea currently, right? So it's not naturally part of our lives, and it's okay. but I'd like to introduce you to your new, real pirate heroes. It's going to require some running around. Because over here we've got Black Sam Bellamy, age 28. He was the first of all the billionaire pirate entrepreneurs. And whilst he was infamous for his ability to steal already stolen Spanish gold, he was even more famous for his articulate executions against church, government, and state. And here we've got Edward Teach, a.k.a. Blackbeard, the most famous of all the pirates. And so famous was he because he was the archetype of the pirate brand. He would permanently and deliberately set light to the ends of his beard so that he would rain down this vision of furious hell upon his hapless victims, not because he was a violent psychopath, quite far from it. There is no record of Blackbeard ever killing anyone. He didn't have to because his brand was so strong. And up here we've got Black Caesar, who is one of the very many black pirates, because 150 years before the abolition of slavery, the pirates were regularly releasing people of color and giving them equal rights and equal say and even equal pay in their communities. And talking of equality, here we've got Queen Anne Bonny, one of the few female pirate figureheads, but undoubtedly one of the most equal and brave and courageous leaders, and demonstrating that one of the only places of true equality and liberty on the earth at the time was on board a pirate ship under the black flag. Now, these are real people. This is true history. And if you want a sense of how they were revered 300 years ago, exactly, in 1719, you could do worse than this slightly trite comparison, because they really were figureheads that represented new ways of organizing, new models of business. And they weren't universally loved, far from it. They were hated, but they were always hotly debated. But they really did represent something new, something truly different. And it wasn't just of the stories they told, there was real innovation, real innovation. So for example, I've already touched on the idea of global branding. The pirates, if we take us as a community, actually, there's about 1,200 or so souls in here, aren't there? 1,300. So the total pirate population was about 2,500. They took on the Royal British Navy, the Dutch Navy, the Spanish Armada, the East India Company, sometimes outnumbered 45-1. And for nearly 35 years, they won. They beat everybody that came their way. And it's because they had this incredibly strong brand. It was a brand that had a singular promise, which was surrender or die, and we can come back to the morality of that. But nonetheless, they knew their story. The other way that they survived was they reinvented business models. So they were escaping a system that was deeply brutal and quite stratified. So to protect themselves, they created this two-house system, the first time it was seen in the world. The captain was in charge of strategy. The quartermaster was given charge of culture and the voice of the people and the team and the crew. And these two figureheads created a system of checks and balances that predates the Companies Act, the Charities Act, and any other two-house system on earth. There was a notion of social insurance. Being in the Navy beforehand had been a very dangerous occupation. So on board a pirate ship, if you lost a leg, 850 pieces of eight. You could retire on that. The first time this had been seen, and it eventually, obviously, became not just law, but an inalienable human right. It goes on, notions of pay equality, one of the big topics in business, wasn't a topic on board a pirate ship because there was no pay gap. On board a pirate ship, everybody was paid an equal rate. And it goes on. I could talk about diversity. I could talk about facilitative leadership. I could talk about agile, nimble networks, self-organizing teams. So many of the buzzwords occupying so many of our organizational challenges were often first seen on board these deeply sophisticated organizations 300 years ago. And if you're not convinced, there's more. On board pirate ships, we saw the first civil sex union that was so sophisticated it had an inheritance clause. And if you're still not convinced, and it's about the right time of evening for this one, pirates invented the cocktail. It's a matter of historical fact, my friends. People sometimes think it's the old-fashioned in New York around 1830, but it wasn't. It was Sir Francis Drake who put lime, mint, sugar, and rum together in a glass and invented the mojito. In other words, pirates fuck shit up. That's really good. That's never got a round of applause before. Thank you. Yes, there's a pirate up there. Now, this is a phrase that I heard along the process of research, right? I wasn't a pirate up until 2 years ago. I was like you, in a big business, really wondering and wanting change, but not sure how I was going to bring it about. And I was aware of the kind of cliche that I could become. Guy leaves career, age 40, middle-class white dude, writes book, becomes public speaker. It's a cliche I haven't avoided. But to try to at least mitigate that, I researched this topic thoroughly. And I went around the world speaking to individuals within large organizations frustrated by this same challenge, right? The opportunity out there is huge. You are going to inherit the earth. And at the moment, you'd want a refund. So what are we going to do to bring about that change? And it was in South Africa. It was some incredible young guys in not dissimilar circumstances to that which you see in Kraków. Huge industry is growing up around it, and these young guys are working with these huge organizations but have a different vision of the future. And they said to me, Sam, we get it. You're talking about fucking shit up. And if you're in your mid-20s and you're in South Africa, fucking shit up means to go out and positively bring about some change. So I stole this, and I love it, especially when I get to put it in 4-foot letters on huge screens. There's another way of saying this, much more famous one in our sector, in the technology world. Steve Jobs, one of the pirates of his time. At the 2-day offsite when they invented the idea of the Mac Classic and fundamentally changed the world, this is the banner that he held above his team to inspire them to do different, to inspire them to challenge, to inspire them not to be scared by the size of the status quo, but in fact to realize that was their opportunity as it is yours. There's another way of saying this. As well as these interesting and surprising historical facts, I also discovered some pirate economists. Who knew they existed? But the pirate economists, of which there are several, argue strongly that for all of us there is a legitimacy in piracy, a tool for bringing about change, really in 2 key moments. One, when we're trying to discover new areas, new territories, new opportunities for growth, because pirates are willing to go off the edge of the map, into uncharted territories, into the shadows, to fight the dragons. And the other time is when things get blocked, when it's not clear where the opportunity is coming from. And it's pirates that are good at breaking the blockages. And we see this again and again, not just in the golden age of piracy, but the dawn of the internet, the advances in biotechnology, even in entertainment and pirate radio. Again and again, the system of piracy breaks deadlocks and brings new opportunity. And this is why I think it's a relevant tool to the challenge that faces you. Because it's both new territories that you've got, new opportunities, and also large organizations, and all that slows us down with them. So, in the center of the book, once I'd done my research and I'd really analyzed what made the golden age of pirates so successful, this small number of 28-year-olds, the millennials, really, of the 18th century, against such incredible odds. And I began to lay them down and put them against current entrepreneurs. And from Chance the Rapper to Greta Thunberg, I found individuals really demonstrating this spirit. And I put together this framework that is, yes, begins with breaking a rule, but very quickly moves into writing new rules. And that's really the art of this. I do not wish to bring about chaos. I do not wish to cause fear. You know, these are jobs, careers, businesses, and brands that we love, and they will be part of what comes next. But we're not going to get there without taking charge of the rule writing. And then the reorganization, you know, who sits where and why. And then the redistribution of the power structures, the equality of say, and the opportunity to determine what really happens next. And then finally, the pirates' real ability, their true strength, which gave them a courage and a scale and influence way beyond their numbers, their ability to tell the tale of that which they've done. And all of this is an opportunity to you. We haven't got time to get into this full framework, but that gives you a sense. And it also gave me the one opportunity for a really, really bad pirate joke, because they became the 5 R's. That's terrible, isn't it? But you don't need to worry about the full framework. You don't even need to worry about the book. It's been summarized in this one line, and I now treasure this. This is the principle I think we are operating with, and this is, I think, the biggest risk to all of us. That the biggest mistake we can make is to believe the way things are is the way they have to be. Time and again, when I ask, when I'm fighting, when I'm arguing for why can we not? What is the opportunity? The reason that we're given? This is the way things are around here. The biggest mistake I think we can all make. Now, I realize it's easy for me to stand up here and say this, you know, but it's not as easy in the day-to-day for you to really do it. But I need to tell you that I've done this. I've just been through this, and I've seen the power and the opportunity of it. So I've begun to give it a name I didn't have when I wrote this book. I'm calling it professional rule breaking. It's professional because it's within our careers, right? It's within these organizations that we love, and it will be part of your career and what takes you forward in what you're doing. But it's rule breaking because following the order isn't going to get us there. It isn't going to release the opportunity. It isn't going to allow you to do the best work of your lives. Now, in most of our organizations, change is really brought about by a method called permission-based change, where you seek permission and are often get told no, or ideas and reasons are given why it can't be done. We know this. You know what happens? I've had a really great idea. Okay, fantastic. Can you put it in some slides for me so that we can kill it in an email thread? Where all good ideas are sent to die. Now, I've been pursuing this both in the research period and the year since the book has been out. I've spoken to many thousands of people in organizations so large, I never would have dreamed that this book would have opened those kind of doors for me. And we get excited, and people want to be pirates, and they want to bring about some change, and they get close to thinking, well, maybe we too can be that change. Maybe you too can get your actual fingerprints on what these organizations become, and of course, therefore, what Kraków becomes. And then we ask, why not? What gets in the way? And I'm given thousands of reasons, really reasonable reasons, the challenges that we face, the trouble that I might get into, that I'm responsible for my family, the emails, the meetings. And you know what? Even though I've heard thousands of reasons why people like me and people like you can't be the change, can't be the pirates, can't be the rebels that will bring about the change that we want, I realized after time that they all fell into two categories. The reasons many brilliant, smart, intelligent professionals tell me they can't be the change. Two categories. They all fall into fear and admin. And that's it. Projection of fear or admin. I'm going to lose my job or I get too many emails. So the opportunity is to step way beyond that. And some of the things we heard earlier on, the opportunity, the actions that we make are based upon the decisions that we've had, are based upon the values that we hold true. So the scariest thing for me was a year ago. I no longer had a job. I'd stepped into this world completely. The turbulence and change in my life as a single father, desperately in need of a more significant income than I'd ever had before. And as I stand before you now, wanting to advocate to you too, that your chance to bring about some change will be in this space, will be in a sense of rebellion, and it will be a bit scary, but it will work. I decided I really, really had to walk the walk off my own plank. So I reread the material, I reread my recommendations. Everything that I've just said to you, I decided to put into action. So in London, this is my publisher. I'm incredibly lucky. I'm dyslexic. I never went to university. This is my first book, and I managed to get published by one of the biggest publishers on earth, Penguin Random House. And it was a few months before the book was due to be out, and I was told that I didn't have any budget whatsoever and no marketing plan. I was in this room. It's right in the middle of London. It's just between the River Thames and Buckingham Palace. It's a huge main thoroughfare. It's 6 lanes of traffic right in the middle of London. And all I could think to myself, apart from being disappointed that I'd been quite let down, was I would really like to fly post to the front of this building. Look at the size of that window. Imagine if I could get my hands on a bright pink version of this and I could completely cover this building. And I knew that was ridiculous. I knew that was a rule to break that was too far, that would get me in trouble. But the idea stuck with me, and I realized that the thing that I was most scared of was absolutely the thing I had to do. With no budget whatsoever, this most pivotal piece of work that I believed was going to make a difference wasn't going to go anywhere. So I came back that night and measured up the front of the window. Then something happened. I got a call from the chief executive himself, a really nice guy called Tom Weldon. He'd worked with me in a previous life, and he'd said, Sam, I'm really interested in your insights, having been an entrepreneur, now becoming an author. What do you think about the business? What could we do differently? And I told him a couple of recommendations. He said, that's great. Would you come in and talk to my leadership team? And just at that moment, I got a quote through from the printers. The cost of making a banner the size of this office was going to be £1,750. So I said to Tom, yeah, I'll do that, but I'll have to charge you a fee. It'll be £1,750. Tom said, that's a very specific amount of money. I said, yes. He said, what's it for? I said, I can't tell you. I got the banner made. I created a fake permission slip. I Googled the Penguin Random House logo. I wrote myself a letter pretending to be from Tom Weldon. I forged his bloody signature down here. It was so clearly by me because there's so many spelling mistakes in this letter. And we got to the morning of the launch of the book, last May 2018. It was a bright sunny morning, and I got the banner delivered, and I ordered 4 high-vis vests off Amazon. And me and 4 lads went down to Penguin, and we installed a poster the size of a London bus across the front of the office of my publisher. It took us about 90 minutes. No one questioned anything. It's amazing what you can get away with in a yellow jacket and a clipboard. And then I ran away. I ran back to my office in Brixton, where, of course, you know this, I'd lined up all of my friends, all of the influencers, all of the people I know with a decent social media following. I thought I'd lined up a bunch of publications and radio stations and everything that you know, and you know what happens? Nothing. Every single one of the bastards let me down. No noise whatsoever, and all I'm getting is ping, 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 ping in my DMs from all the team at Penguin saying, oh my God, what have you done? You're going to be the first author to lose his book deal on the day of publication. You maniac, the managing director is on a warpath for you. Her number's bleeding on my phone. I'm thinking, I can't do this. So I start getting in touch with everybody I can, please, get behind this thing, right? We've got to make a bit of a noise out of this thing. And then gradually in the afternoon, it begins to build up. I made a video, I got some really good tweets, a bit of traction. And then at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Sir Richard bloody Branson tweets the thing. And then all of a sudden it goes wild. It starts to go viral. It hits into the Amazon bestseller list, into the top 1,000, into the top 500. By the time it gets to the end of the day, about 6 o'clock, it's broken into the top 100 books in the UK, which is ridiculous. Like, Jamie Oliver's got 100 books alone in the top 100. And finally it manages to wake itself up into the top 60s, and it's absolutely done incredibly well. And I get a phone call, and it's Tom Weldon, and he says, "Congratulations, now take it down." I was like, "Oh, Tom, look what we've done. I can't take it down now. Come on, please. Just, maybe a couple of weeks." No. And herein, I discovered my first pirate hack, which I will give to you now freely. For all of us in large organizations or facing large-scale change, when we've got the idea, this isn't to be used easily. When you've got the idea that you know and you believe in is the chance to bring about some real change, and you get given a no by someone who just doesn't have the vision or the courage or the confidence to back you. When you get that no, you pretend there was a crackle on the line or it was a bit of translation, and what you heard was, "Go." It works, right? You can't use it too many times, and it is only for use at work. But once or twice a year, you can get with it. So I was like, "Okay, Tom, right then. We'll just leave that up." And then I went to the races. So I was trying to get involved in the retail situation. I know nothing about retail, and what I discovered wasn't very exciting. So I wanted to get my book in all the shops. So I spoke to everyone at Penguin, "Can I get behind the retail operation?" And they said no. So what did I hear? Go. So I got myself down. My book was out the same day as Jordan B. Peterson, which is a very, very interesting book, but he is a dickhead. So I covered up all of his books with a stash of my own, and then I went down to Waterstones, in the flagship store in the center of London, where they only had one book. One book. So I took down 20 and made myself a nice little window display. At that point, I got arrested. I went onto the London Underground because I had no advertising budget, and I printed out some banners at work, and I took over the entire of the adverts across the entirety of the London Underground one morning, which was awesomely good fun. Of course, I gave it back to any of you who may have been buying advertising. It continued. I got a US book deal with Simon & Schuster, the biggest publishers in the US, and it just so happened that I signed the deal 2 days before the President of America was coming to London. I had this great book review that said the wrong pirates are in charge. This crazy guy had got me on Twitter saying, "I've got a massive 3,000 lumen projector if you need one." I was like, "Great, I've got the high-vis vests." Went down to Parliament at midnight, projected a 125-foot welcome note to President Trump against the sides of the Houses of Parliament. That went down really, really well. That got me invited onto the news on the Saturday morning. Mainstream news, but Saturday morning is when I take my darling Scarlett to drama. So I said, "Scarlett, do you want to go and be on TV?" And she's like, "Yes." And so I called the studio and I said, "Can I bring my 5-year-old?" And they said, "No." So what do we hear? And it turns out, right, if you're ever looking for a good bit of media coverage, if you take your super cute 5-year-old on the telly with you, it goes viral. Child exploitation meets PR. And then the book is out in America, right, which is a long way from home. And, they've definitely told me I'm not allowed to come anywhere near the situation. And of course, we know what that means. And also, they're Americans. They haven't really got a sense of humor. So I'm trying to find ways that I could do something similar. And I started Googling the most influential book-reading celebrities. And it turns out it's these guys. I was thinking, how am I going to get my book in the hands of Ryan Gosling? How am I going to get my book in the hands of Bill Gates? How am I going to do that? And then I thought, fuck it. I could just Photoshop it. So I just did. In fact, I didn't even do it. Thanks very much. I went on Fiverr, and this really nice guy did it all in Bangladesh for $23. And, this is the age of disinformation and fake news, right? So I don't want to contribute to that, but I thought it was so bad, like no one was going to believe it, but everyone believed it. But nonetheless, we went back to bestseller status. So obviously, Simon & Schuster got on the phone and said, "What have you done?" And I said, this. And they said, "No. No. So if you're going to go then, there's only one place really left to go, which is there. Don't fuck with Oprah, is the advice that I have for you. Anyway, and I could carry on telling you all sorts of silly stories, but the truth was that was really scary. This is my life. This is my income. I've got kids and a career, but I passionately believe in this. I passionately believe in this moment. This opportunity that faces all that you here in Kraków are a microcosm of, right? We have to decide what comes next, or it's just going to happen to us. My marketing director then sat me down and said, "Listen, Sam, Are you going to get serious about selling some books? Or is this just about your movement? And it was a really useful challenge because it focused me completely. I'm not here to sell books. I'm definitely here to start some kind of movement. I didn't know that. But this feeling that I've got, that I imagine most of you got, this kind of frustration with how messed up things seem to be, and our role in all of this is either just to play along or do nothing. That doesn't seem like an option. So we've got to do something, right? So something happened. A few weeks after the book was out, I got my first email from a reader. It said, "Dear Sam, I really enjoyed the book, particularly these bits, and by the way, I've just resigned." I said, "What? What do you mean you've just resigned?" And then I realized, well, actually, maybe that's fantastic. I began to find out her story, and she was in the wrong job. I don't advocate resignation, but I do advocate being in the right place and being brave enough to realize that. But before I could do too much about it, I received another, and then another, and then another, and then like a regular drumbeat every single day of the 30 stages and 3 weeks and then months of this book. People telling me the incredible things they've done. Not just leaving jobs, that's not what I'm about. I'm about people standing up for themselves, about fighting for change, about being the change they want to see. And I don't mind whether it's someone who's resigned or some crazy naked guy on Twitter telling me about the revolution that he's going to bring about. All I'm interested in is people taking action. This was an incredible young woman who fought against the Home Office in the UK about a friend who'd been detained inside a prison. And it took me 6 months of last year just to think this was just all crazy people. This must happen to anyone who writes a book, until I had a folder of over 1,000 emails of people telling me about action, about rebellion, about change, about actually finding the nerve, not listening to this inner narrative that what can I do? Getting in touch with that sense of the pirate spirit, that actually all change comes from us, comes from you, comes from small groups of people. And so this year, I've started to really invest time in it. I can't believe I'm being invited to organizations like Mercedes, you know, facing a huge challenge after the emissions scandal, the revolution that's going on in that industry, and working with teams in an organization like that who, like you, believe how hard it is to make change, all the way through to Sony. Sony have got so excited by this, but there's a real culture at Sony of kind of control, and stepping outside the mold is not really to be celebrated. So get this, the paradox, they've scheduled fucking shit up meetings. Because at Sony, you need to schedule your fucking shit up. But nonetheless, fucking shit up is in the diary. And so it continues. Some incredible guys. These guys left the Defense Tech Accelerator and have started an incubator just around environmental technologies. I'm now working closely with these pirates who at first I just didn't believe were real. And now I have so many inspiring stories of people willing to stand up against the world, to do the thing that scares all of us, that scared me so much a year and a half ago, that probably scares you if you really are interested in some kind of change, or setting out towards the vision that has been challenged to you this afternoon. Because it won't be easy. Fundamentally, it'll be scary. If it's not scary, then you're probably not anywhere near bringing about the kind of change that you have the potential to do. This is the kind of places I found myself, like a chancer, talking about rule breaking and pirates. And yet somehow it's funding me to then go out and take it on the road and to communities and local authorities and charities. And in there I'm learning such principles of change. And we're not alone in this. You are not alone in thinking things should be different. Or perhaps this organization could be doing something differently, or perhaps your ideas are good enough to change this organization. All of us are thinking it. And actually there is a way of acting on it. And that's what I'm dedicating myself to now, this entire year, fundamentally pushing it, because I'm beginning to find some things. Certainly the key things, and you'll recognize these, the key things that people really believe get in the way of change within organizations are the obvious ones, the processes, the semantics, the language of it, the silos, the hierarchy, fundamentally the way we organize ourselves. It gets in the way. And yet what I'm finding, whether it's in the large organizations or the small organizations, there's another list. And when we begin to adopt a sense of bravery, of real trust, of accountability, of courage and agency, and fundamentally simplicity and fun, then things begin to unlock. And huge change begins to take place very, very quickly. And this is really the paradigm, the revolution of change that I'm seeing in all of these organizations. They're all relatively easy things to do. There is another way of phrasing it, and it's very simply mutiny. Now, I know mutiny gets a bad press, right, historically. But fundamentally, it's the tool that we have. There has never been an instance in history of great change that didn't begin with a small group of human beings. And that will always be the case. So why do we allow ourselves to believe that it's not possible, that it's not us? It always comes from the unexpected, the individual, the outsider. And there is nothing To quote Victor Hugo, nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. So if you've got those ideas, you've certainly got people around you, the potential is clearly here. So that's where all change begins. The last thought that I got from any of these pirates and rebels, I thought I would leave with you. And I moved these around when I'd seen the fascinating presentation that we had before about the two cities. This guy, I didn't even manage to get back to him. Like I said, thousands of these I've received. This guy, Nick Fogdog, finished the book. Tomorrow is day one. Day one. This is a language that we know and we understand. Real change, because it begins with this. The things that we heard from Jim beforehand, the decision in his mind that tomorrow is day one. And it's a decision and an opportunity that I invite you to take as well, by being a little bit more pirate. Thank you all very, very much indeed.